Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around fancy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
The penultimate Correspondent Week Podcast. James, we're on episode 19. Do you want to introduce our correspondent for this one?
Yeah, I want to introduce you to the correspondent you've been most looking forward to speaking to all week. Our Everton correspondent, Sean Norton, is in. How are you, pal?
I'm good. How are you, boys?
Yeah, very well.
Not
Thank you,
bad
mate.
at all. Thank
Go on,
you.
Suj,
Yeah,
open it
really
up.
good. Well, we started the preamble and you're talking about Frank Lampard. You've obviously got him in the background for the viewers that are on YouTube that can have a look. When you say you're kind of happy with Frank, tongue in cheek, or do you think he did a good job at the end of the season? Or
Sean moved the camera just to make sure everyone can see
him. Yeah, what are your thoughts going into the season on Frank and what he might be able to do?
Yeah, so the comments were more because I know he sort of winds everybody up outside of the Everton fan base. So it was just a bit of devilment there. But Frank coming in was, I mean, there weren't many options for us at the time, and we certainly didn't want Peter Pereira. But what he managed to do in a quick, short space of time was unite the fan base, which was obviously needed after Benitez went. And he's given the club the ability to unite, because obviously at the time it was sorely needed. The whole relegation battle that we went through. I think Frank was key to the last sort of half dozen games, making sure that Everton stayed in the Premier League. I mean, I honestly didn't think I'd be recording one of these this season, which was a bit depressing. But
I mean, there was a period in the last 4 or 5 weeks where it could have been Burnley, could have been Leeds, could have been Everton. I'll be honest, I flip-flopped between all of them as to who I thought I was going to go down in the running at one point.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I wish I was the same, but unfortunately, I was absolutely convinced we were going, and I know a lot of fans were. So when you're faced with that sort of, you've created your own reality where you're not going to be in the Premier League anymore. It is a very scary position to be in, and I think that was what Frank was aware of, but sort of tapped into and got the positives out of the fans and ultimately the players, because these were players that most of us spent last season absolutely hammering, and deservedly so at times. But the second half performance against Crystal Palace, fair play to him. And fair play to all the players that we've been that have been underperforming, because every one of them gave a sort of 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 performance. It was absolutely incredible, and a lot of that goes to Frank. So he's definitely got the backing of the fan base. There are sort of unanswered questions about his managerial ability. Of course there are, but the fan base is definitely united in wanting to stay at Everton and do a good job and make sure we're not in that position again.
I'm sure you'll remember, mate, what I kept saying to you. It sort of 10 weeks out, 8 weeks out, kept saying the same thing to you. Them home games.
Yeah. And I know. I mean, in all fairness, most of the other correspondents, when I chat to them, and the guys in the Slack channel, every other sort of non-Evertonian sort of felt like we'd stay up. I think I predicted we'd get 36 points, and if we'd got 36 points, we'd still just about stayed up. As it was, we ended up on 39, didn't we? So, but it was just a horrible, absolutely horrible experience. One that we never thought that we'd be in. I predicted that we'd finish 12th in the end, because I'd done 10th on the form last season and then changed it on Twitter to 12th. And I always did caveat it with, we had to stay clear of injuries. And they were, about, I think there was us and Leeds that probably had the worst injuries in the league last season. And we just didn't have the cover. And the same will apply to this season.
I think it's always psychological as well for the neutral to think Everton won't go down. I mean, it's never happened in your lifetime, right? So we know there were the close escapes in the 90s and stuff, but you didn't expect when Ancelotti walked out the door last summer, you can't have expected that it would have gone quite as badly as it did. Reality is right now, we think the forthcoming season is obviously going to be really tough again, which we'll come back onto. But I just want to touch a little bit more on Lampard. And you saying he kind of uniting the crowd. Now, I actually think it's a big deal considering the disconnect with obviously Benitez and the owners and stuff at the moment as well. You know what a lot of people think from other clubs about him? Do you think he has weaknesses as a manager, be it tactically, the way he speaks in public? Because a lot of people are very critical of some of the stuff.
Yeah, I don't quite get the stuff that people jump on him for that he says publicly. I've got to be honest, and that's where you do sort of get the vibe that there is an agenda in the media against the fella. I'm, as critical as it gets in terms of comments that an Everton manager will come out with. But he's never said anything that's sort of made me think, oh, hang on a minute, Frank, you shouldn't be saying that. I think a lot of the stuff he says gets taken out of context. I mean, he's really good, and he'll come out after the match and he'll speak for 4, 5, 6 minutes on an interview, and then 30 seconds gets clipped. And it's, people seem to go looking for some, something that he said and try to make something of it. I saw Andy put something out on Twitter the other week about, it seems like all he does since he's gone to Everton is sort of have a pop at the players. But like I said, the back end of last season, you don't get those performances out of the players if you've been throwing them under the bus. There's just no chance. Even if you are playing for the club, the size of Everton and stuff, it's not like we didn't stay up in spite of Frank. Do you know what I mean?
No. I agree with that. But a lot of them players would have been playing for their futures as well, right? In terms of wages. I don't know what the situation would have been at Everton in terms of discounted wages if you'd have gone down. But you'd have to think people would obviously probably would have to have been sold. Would there be takers? Are you getting loaned somewhere you don't really want to go? So, I mean, individual prime. We take Richarlison, who I think we knew for a lot of the year was probably going to leave. I mean, he didn't put a shift in, did he? He gave it everything to help keep that football club up. Yeah,
absolutely. But when the final whistle went against Crystal Palace, I mean, even when we stayed up against Wimbledon all those years ago, the win seemed quite like there was after the Palace game with the coaching staff and the players, and it just showed that the whole club was was one pulling in the right direction. The players stayed on the pitch with the fans for a good sort of 10-15 minutes after the game. If you go back and watch the footage, you've got the likes of Andros Townsend who could barely walk, and he was on the pitch with the fans trying to dance and jump up and down with them. I think the feeling of relief was massive. But Frank, after the game, ended up on the top by the director's box on the top of the corporate boxes, and it was just like I say, it was a massive relief. But absolutely, everybody's together. There's no divide. There's no issue with his comments. I think he's obviously got. There's some tactical issues there, but I don't think it's any worse or there's any more than when Mikel Arteta first went to Arsenal, or with Steven Gerrard at Aston Villa. These are talented young up and coming managers, and they're gonna make mistakes. I know Steven was in obviously Scotland, but he's in Rangers, isn't he? They're high pressurized leagues, high pressurized situations. They're gonna make mistakes, but the important thing is they learn along the way. I wasn't overly impressed with some of the formations that teams that Frank was picking at certain times. But we've had the experienced managers, haven't we? We've had Koeman, but Benitez was obviously a disaster. We had Carlo, and that didn't last. So Frank isn't the sort of manager I'd normally want Everton to have, because I think he's too experienced on paper. But other clubs, modern day football now, they try young, fresh managers with different ideas, and it does work a lot of times. So why not Frank and why not with us?
No, fair. Is everyone at the club pulling in the right direction now? We should timestamp this and say we're pre-recording this on Friday afternoon. And I was quite keen to have Sean on quite near the end when I did the schedule, because Everton didn't final pre-season friendly isn't until today, the Sunday. Of course, then they went and arranged another friendly against Dynamo Kiev on Friday night, which I know you're going to, or if you're listening to this, have already gone to. So bear that in mind when you're having a listen. But we obviously know, like last Saturday, there was demonstrations outside the ground. So where are we now? It's not like, oh, you survived, let's forget about it. The fans obviously want change within the football club. So how do you see the situation now as a club going into the football season?
So the demonstrations and the protests, etc. There's different ways to sort of put this across, because I think if you just ask the fans if they're happy with the board at Everton, then the vast majority, sort of over 90% of fans would say no, they're not. The problem sort of come about with, well, what do you do with that? Can you change it? Can you affect it? And a lot of fans don't think you can. A lot of fans, don't agree with protesting, don't agree with, calling out board members or the owner on social media, etc. A lot of them believe that you've just got to, you can be unhappy with them, but you've got to give them the opportunity to put it right. A lot of fans do think that the changes that the club have made in the structure, in bringing in Frank and Kevin Felwell, has got to be given time. And then there's fans who just think it's just more of what's already gone on before, and the real change needs to happen at board level. So the message from those that actively want to protest and actively want to campaign is one, back the team, but sack the board. And I think it's very, very clear in Everton's finances and the way I've got about the business over the sort of 6 years that Farhad Moshiri's been here. It is not a well-run club. I defy anybody to be able to argue that it is. It's an absolute shambles.
Well, if you look on the numbers, not possible. It's just not possible with the amount of losses that you've made.
I saw, Sean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't include last year, but the previous 5 years, I think you were about 7th for highest spenders across Europe.
Yeah.
But you never felt that way, because you bought a lot of shit, right? Reality.
Yeah, I mean, I've been coming on these pods each summer for the last few years, and it's sort of just, hoping and wishing that they're making the right decision and work out. But there's not too many signings where I've been saying to you boys, oh, I'm absolutely delighted with this. How have we signed this player? Or, this player's got loads of potential. We're not normally questioning the age of the players, the money that we're paying, the wages. I remember,
ironically, like last season, it was like if Damari Gray and Townsend were free and cheap, and they're the ones that did the best. It's like, it's not always the big money ones that have performed.
No, and I think that just highlights how poor the spending has been. That somebody like Damari Gray is probably sort of best value for money signing that we've made under Farhad Moshiri while he's been the owner. It's been so poor, but their communication is so poor as well. And pretty much everything they do is really poor. So there's a theme that you can sort of pick up on, and then they're very dismissive, of the campaign members, and it's almost just like, go away. We know what we're doing, and so that just adds fuel to the fire and winds people up. But everybody, the sort of slogan of back the team, sack the board, that'll be a theme that just runs through the club now until something happens, which probably will be the sale of the club, but not. I don't think it'll sell till the new ground is built and we've moved
signals, wasn't there? There was talks with Peter Kenyon's group, and it looked quite quickly like something might happen, and then they let their kind of first refusal expiry date pass, and then after that, Moshiri came out and put a statement on the website saying, "I'm not selling the club."
Yeah.
So it seems like the 100% was talks with like Kenyon's group and stuff. So what is it? Is he looking to sell? Is he not looking to sell? You're saying it's probably not till after the stadium now. I've spoke to you, and I've said it on pods. Everton are in for a rough few years in terms of I really think the next few years are just about keeping your head above water. Then you get in that stadium, you can think again. The problem with that is, meanwhile, while you're keeping your head above water, the West Hams, the Leicesters, the Newcastles, the ones who are around that cluster trying to push are pulling away.
Yeah,
problem.
Exactly, and that's why sort of there's a proportion of the fan base who aren't prepared to just sit back and do nothing and wants to say to people, come on. I mean, we are Everton. We're not. I remember doing predictions with you over the years, and I'd be Suj would be saying that I would think Everton will be all right. They won't go down. They'll finish about maybe 10th or 9th, and you'd be the one that was turning around going, "But that's shit. This is Everton. Everton finishing 10th. Shit. Fans won't be happy with that. That's not where Everton should be finishing. Ultimately, we've been where we've been because we keep making poor football decisions, and you can't do that in the Premier League and get away with it because all the other clubs are far too switched on and operating really well, and they will overtake you. And I've sort of seen this coming, and it hasn't surprised me, whatsoever. But it's like there are fans that want to actively do something about this, and it's not a case of all of you get out. I mean, like necessarily, but we just think that's what it's going to take because these people don't show any real signs of being able to prove that they've learned from past mistakes, and the fact that they won't even come out and admit the past mistakes that everybody else can see that they've made, to me, just sums up how poor they are at running the club and doing the job.
I'd say that there's been a levelling up across the league of management of clubs, because clubs that are even below the likes of West Ham, Newcastle, Leicester, like Palace, and you look at the way they recruit young talent from the Championship that's going to make, they do their business very well. Brighton, right? They're never going to get their pants pulled down, and they seem to recruit really well. And these clubs as well are well run and stable, and seem to just make good footballing decisions at board and director of football level as well. There's a levelling up across the whole league. I mean, there's very few clubs now that you look at and you think that's a circus like there has been previously, where people buy clubs for the prestige or just because they want to show how rich they are. It doesn't happen as much anymore, and it makes it harder. Like I talk about it now, the Premier League is a real arms race, and that people just spending more, bigger guns, getting better, and the bigger players are still getting even bigger. It's a really hard one to keep up with. If you make a couple of bad decisions, it can really backfire. I mean, we've made bad ones in Haller and Anderson and stuff, and it's like getting the likes of Jared Bowen and Souček and stuff like that actually rectified it by not trying to spend big money on big players and flagship signings, and finding a manager and a philosophy that works and fits with the club. But it's much harder done than said. I think it's very easy to say, just get a good manager and invest in young, good talent, find a way to play. It's not as easy as that, as much as we'd like to all do it.
Yeah, correct. And I think that's the problem when you get it wrong and you start falling behind. And Everton have clearly found, such were the signings that we made. You can't get people out the door then. We had Cheng Tosin sitting on a 5-year contract with no intention of going anywhere, and clubs wanted him, but he just wouldn't reduce that salary. A similar thing's going to happen now with the likes of Andre Gomez. Yerry Mina. I love Yerry. No one loves Yerry more than I do. But again, his availability hasn't been there, and he's on sort of well over £100,000 a week. But you can't attract offers for these players because of their ridiculous salaries, and it's disproportionate to their abilities on the pitch. So you just, like James said, you just end up falling further and further behind. And this is Everton who aren't, we're not meant to be about messing about down the bottom of the table. We're supposed to be, the idea, and this is why Richarlison's ended up leaving, was to push the top 4, the top 6 at very minimum. And he give us four seasons. Carlo had to persuade him to stay last season. which of course was very ironic because Carlo himself ended up going. But Richie stayed. So the fact we got 4 years out of him, we got 4 years out of Lukaku as well. And Lukaku done nothing but score goals for Everton for 4 seasons. And
Can't score for anyone else, though, by the way.
No, I know. Yeah.
Right, done all right for Inter Milan, James.
No, true.
We definitely got the best Lukaku. Everton's Lukaku was by far the best. But he gave us the time. You can't, fans won't have a bad word said about it, really. Lukaku, or Richarlison, because he gave us the time. He gave us 4 years, and all we done
went for big money as well.
Yeah, which we then didn't spend. We didn't spend the Lukaku money very well. Ross Barkley went at the same sort of time as Lukaku. We had when Garner left under Marco Silva, and we didn't replace him, and we've never replaced him since. I come on here every year and complain that we need a quality holding midfielder and number 6. I wasn't convinced Alan or Doucouré were going to be that player. I said that at the time. I thought we'd sign one of them, not the other one, because they both sort of want to play the football in the opposing half of the pitch. But the powers that be at the club decided they were the right players to get, and it's proven not to be the case.
In Richarlison's case, it became clear that it was going to have to be him that went, unless a silly bid came in for Jordan Pickford, because we spoke about the kind of the 3 big assets, including Calvert-Lewin. No one was coming for. I think people would have come for Calvert-Lewin if he'd been fit all season, but no one was going to do it now. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin will come into the team for Richarlison. We have to remember Calvert-Lewin basically didn't play last season. Other than that 1 week, we owned him in FPL when he missed a penalty. How do you see the on-field chances for this season with the team it stands now? We should clarify, at the time of recording, we do know Dwight McNeil's signing is confirmed, and Ruben Vinagre is also in the club. We don't have an FPL price for Dwight McNeil this year.
Yeah, I think with the squad that it is today, it's very difficult. Me being the way I am, it's very difficult to see us staying up. I could sort of name, say, 7 clubs that I firmly believe would be the sort of bottom 7, and I think you two would probably name the exact same 7 clubs. But Brentford would be in that 7. But I don't think we've personally got a chance of finishing above Brentford. But any of the others, then if we recruit right, then I think we could fairly comfortably stay up. But as it stands today, I'd be petrified. I really would, and I don't see us staying up with the squad that we've got today, because we've only really got Calvert-Lewin that you can sort of look at and say he'll get goals if he stays fit, if he's on the pitch, he'll score probably double figures at least. But there's nothing outside of that really. We'd be relying on a Dele Alli sort of rebirth, because Dele's got the quality unquestionably to score goals. But there's no options outside of that to rely on. The midfielders don't get goals. Anthony Gordon might chip in with 4 or 5. Damari Gray possibly would get sort of 4 or 5. Andros Townsend's not going to be fit till probably January. So it's a really, really sort of, Dwight McNeil's not got a track record of scoring goals.
One attacking return last season, which is under his ability. Because regular listeners will know I rate him, but he really did dip last year.
Yeah, so it's hard to. He's only 22, isn't he?
Yeah, it's true.
And when you're in a relegation battle, we saw it with Anthony Gordon. And Anthony Gordon at times, looked like he was carrying the weight of the team on his shoulders, and it affected his performances. So I think, it's very difficult for really young, because they're inexperienced, aren't they? And the relegation battle is a really high pressurized situation, no more so than obviously in the Premier League, with everything that's at stake. But it'd be a massive concern if the season the window shut.
It's a huge month,
and we haven't added anybody else.
This month, I would say, as in coming into August, off field is bigger for Everton than anybody else in this league by a distance. Because I think Everton have got to be cute, have got to be clever, they've got to target, I think, other leagues around Europe. People seem to get gems from countries like France and Germany and stuff. You've got to search these markets out and stuff. stop taking shit from the big six that they don't want. When Harry Winks was linked with you, for example, and stuff. It's like, okay, Harry Winks is a good player. Is he actually better than what you've got? Like, try and look at something that's going to freshen up the squad, build it, etc. So I know, like, you're looking at potentially getting Garner Gay back from PSG. Certainly would help in the midfield area. Whether he's quite got the legs to do what he did for you when he did it so well in previous years, I'm not convinced. Are we heading towards, Sean, do you think 5-4-1 being a regular system here?
Yeah, it's difficult.
Or 3-4-3, depending on your interpretation.
It's that's exactly why, I'm not a massive fan of talking about formations, because people like to split hairs with them, don't they? But I know Frank mentioned on the tour of America that we were playing three at the back, more so because he didn't have the midfield options available. I also heard, I was randomly listening to Thomas Tuchel talking about the Arsenal game, and someone asked him about three at the back versus two at the back, and he said, well, if I haven't got three centre halves available, I can't play three at the back anyway, can I? I've got to play a flat back four. And I think that's why Frank's mainly playing three at the back at the minute, because the only central midfield sort of options has been Doucouré and Tom Davis, really, for the pre-season, because Alan's sort of just coming back from his injury, and we haven't signed anybody in the central midfield area. So I'm not totally convinced that we'll play three at the back all season. I think he will chop and change, and he done that in the running last season anyway. So I think that will continue. Nathan,
I just feel like at the moment, we'll definitely talk about Patterson. Looking at the moment, it is the opposite. You do have the bodies at centre back, and I think back to when you played at our place in March, and he spoke after the game saying he wanted to play like a back three, and he didn't have the personnel to do it. I look now with Tarkowski on board, Michael Keane, Mason Holgate, Ben Godfrey, Yerry Mina. There's five. That suggests at the moment, actually, if Everton try and put their strongest 11 on a football pitch, particularly if Yerry Mina's fit, I think probably is a back three.
Yeah, I agree.
Got in Patterson. That's all anybody came for, really.
I think there's probably only going to be about 10 people watching this, looking at the ownership of Everton's players.
It's only 8, actually. Sure. Go on. Go on. Tell us about Patterson.
But well, Nathan Patterson, obviously we signed him in January. We never really got to see him play because unfortunately he got injured. He played against Bournemouth in the FA Cup, and that was it really. But he's looked really promising in pre-season. I mean, the team was pretty poor in the two friendlies that we had out in America against Arsenal and Minnesota. But against Blackpool, he was really good. He was like him and Tarkowski were the best players on the pitch. And watching him play, even though he was on the right, it was very much like watching Leighton Baines all those years ago. The sort of technique he's got when he crosses the ball. So there's a big opportunity for him there, because obviously Seamus is about 62 now. So
and he's injured currently as well.
He's currently got a problem. Now his right wing back, Patterson, should be the first choice. But the caveat is Iwobi played there towards the end of last season and done quite well.
I have to say, Alex Iwobi was really good for you in the last couple of months.
Oh yeah, he was. Against Crystal Palace, he was absolutely outstanding. Fair play to him. I mean, they all were, but Iwobi was absolutely everywhere.
Phenomenal running. Actually, it's credit to Lampard. They kind of reinvented him a little bit as a midfielder. It needs to be in a 3 rather than a 2. But, it can work. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, no, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, when we were talking about Frank and he's got a really good coaching team that's coming with him, and it's already, we have Alex Iwobi is a prime example that we have started seeing improvement in players that you can see has come from coaching, and we haven't had that since Moyes was at the club. Really, nobody seems to kick on and get better. But Frank's managed to do that with a few players, and that's why I've got high hopes for Nathan Patterson this season. But he's not he's not nailed, even though Coleman's unavailable. So I think Patterson will start the season. But what happens after the first couple of games will obviously be down to him. It's not like there's no other options there. Because Alex Iwobi could play there. We might not play a back three. We could go to a back four. And I think there are concerns about his defending ability in this league. So I'm not sure if we played a back four, they'd necessarily be in.
I think he's exciting, and why he stays in the team, he genuinely does have the capability of chipping in with an attacking return from it, particularly obviously if he plays in the wing back position. I personally can't make the case to pick him over Nico Williams at the moment, because I know Nico Williams is going to play in the game, and also know that Forest's fixtures get better as it goes on as well. I could only really make the case for Patterson. I think if I was going to go back three, I think I'd go with him. I'd go with him and Williams as 2 4.0s, and know that, all right, yeah, and we're saving the money and we're spreading it. But that's the only way I can see him in. So you're going that way at the moment.
I'm going Patterson and Nico Williams, and I'm going three at the back. Yeah, that's my plan. And barring anything that makes me think he's not going to play Patterson, then that's fine. I mean, you talk about he might pick up the odd attacking return or whatever. The likelihood is whenever he does that, it's going to be on my bench anyway. I'm not likely to see
it's true.
Points. But you never know. And if I need him, I need him. But I think the injury to Coleman, as soon as that happened, I thought, right, okay, Patterson, yes.
How long do we expect him out, Sean?
Seamus, there's not some sort of groin problem. I think there's not been too much said about it. So
that happens at 62. I'm sure everybody at 62 gets the odd groin problem.
Feels a sort of tight groin, yeah. I've got a bit of a concern. It might be a long, not long term, but medium term. Because obviously at his age, he hasn't had the pre-season. So even if he was fit in a week, sort of available in a week, it would take him several weeks to get fit again. Lampard
loves him though, doesn't he? We're not actually talking about the football. It's his leadership role within the club and stuff as well. And he has obviously been phenomenal for you for well in excess of 10 years. But he really counts on him, his experience. Many of us will have seen the videos in the dressing room after the Palace game and stuff like that. So I wouldn't discount his leadership and experience being valuable to Lampard and coming back in the team when he's ready. But this could be, Patterson could definitely become first choice. I agree with Sean. I see no reason at this minute in time why he wouldn't start the season. I think there is a case to say that in Everton's wide players, and I think we can bring McNeil into that now as well, to go with not so much Gray, but Gordon, I think, can as well. They can play the wing-back position, is what I'd say. I don't think that's favoured or what the starting choice would be, but Dwight McNeil could definitely play a wing-back position, for example. So these little things add up where I couldn't make the case to say he's a better choice than Williams, who is definitely going to play wing-back for Nottingham Forest probably every game. And the more the season goes on, their fixtures get better. But in your case, Suj, three at the back, it's absolutely fine. And I'd probably do the same.
Yeah.
You going to have him, Sean?
I've got him at the minute. He's in at the minute, but there's still a week to go. So I want to see. Obviously, will have played by the time this comes out. But I'm interested to watch him again tonight, and see how he gets on. But I think it's very much you sort of having that player that you know is a nailed starter unless he gets injured. There's a lot to say for that with fantasy football, isn't there? So I can understand why people would go for Nico Williams, but I definitely think he's somebody that he should be on the watch list. I mean, I remember
he shouldn't leave it while he's in the team.
Yeah, we all went for Mitchell, didn't we? Remember when he come out and he was relatively unknown, untried, untested, but everybody flocked to him. Because there was talk that he potentially was going to play regular football, and 4 million gems in fantasy football. Players are gems at that price, aren't they? So I think we're looking.
Where he's unfortunate is we don't normally have two that's clear like this.
No. No. I think either one, I think would be good picks. But obviously, if you were going to play, if you were looking to play one, then I'd go Nico Williams.
Great.
Because you are more certain that he'll stay in the team in the sort of medium term as well.
So, which Everton player have you found in your squad, Sean?
No, I haven't got any. I don't put any in, though. I don't do it because we've got enough bad luck. If you had to tell Suj, because Suj ain't that bothered anyway. If you had to tell Suj to have one Everton player that wasn't called Patterson, who would you tell him? Don't stitch him up. Tell him seriously. Tell him properly. Yeah. Oh, okay. We're not doing that now then, James. No.
Can I just make a point on Patterson? Patterson and Nico Williams as well. Forest play Tottenham and City. And I think you have, is it Leeds? Leeds and Forest? So I'll bench Nico Williams for those two, and I'll probably play Patterson, assuming he's in the team. I'll play him for those two. And so for people that are thinking, three at the back, but then you've got two shit, but I'll rotate them, and they're not too bad, the rotation. I think is it 3 you play each other anyway.
I think you'd probably go Williams first 2, then Patterson for 3, and then go back to Williams, and you'd probably stick with it from there. And it rotates, so it works for me for the start, just on the two of them together, basically. But go on, Everton player to pick. I think it also works with the likes of Trippier as well. If you have Trippier and Patterson, because Newcastle have got a couple of tough fixtures early on, and I'm sure they're in the same game weeks as we played. Newcastle's free, and City and Liverpool at the start and end of that little period.
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways of making him a bit more.
Trippier generally is a tough player to leave out, though, I would say, with the set pieces and stuff that come with him.
That's it. There'll be the games that he banks a free kick in, won't
you know it. Yeah.
That's how it works.
Goal and assist at Anfield when he's on everyone's bench. Yeah, I mean, you absolutely know it. Imagine he might lose 6-2.
But hopefully not.
He said that because of you. Anthony Gordon, I think he's the one that people are considering, just trying to explore different Pedro Neto options. I think at that price range, or are you gonna do the Ricky Saunders special and talk up Delhi, mate?
I would. Well, Delhi would be the one that I would say. It's the only other Everton player I'd consider is Delhi.
So do you think he'll start the season?
Yeah, I do. I think Delhi's going to have. I think he's going to have a good season. I think for his own career, I think he absolutely has to.
I think he's been in that position for a couple of years. I'd say, in fairness,
if we're gonna start with 3 at the back, the squad that we've got at the minute, he's definitely going to start the season. And then it's up to him what he does, because I'm sure we've got to sign a Dennis or a Cornet. We have to, because we've got no chance of staying up if we don't. So I'm sure we'll get somebody like that to sort of cover Richie's position. And I think getting Delhi in and around the box. We saw it against Blackpool, because in the first half with Rondon up front, he couldn't really get in the box. Then Rondon went off. Delhi went up top, played as like a false 9, and he scores 2 goals, within minutes, because he just comes alive in and around the box. But against Palace, he was making the team tick. You had obviously Iwobi was running around all over the place with the Corey chasing everything that moved down. But Delhi was so clever, dropping deep to get on the ball. But then the next minute he'd be running in behind. He was linking up play. He was winning free kicks all over the shop. I think he must have won 7 or 8 free kicks in the second half. He won the free kick that was led to the first goal to sort of spark the comeback. But he was so lively, he was so impressive. And he did start looking like the Delhi that I remember when I used to watch him play for Tottenham.
I'm very pleased to hear that, because I've got a lot of love for Dell, obviously. He is still, even now, one of the best in the business in terms of off-the-ball movement. If you don't believe that, watch Tottenham and Liverpool's 2-2 draw from December. Honestly, he sees the runs long before the passes happen and stuff. But one of my concerns when he went to you was, well, who the fuck's going to find him? It's a little bit of a problem. And what happens is if Delhi's not being found, he comes too deep, and then he's not as good a footballer on the ball as he thinks he is. What he is he's a shadow striker. He's a shadow striker who wants to be honest, if you go direct into Calvert-Lewin at times, run behind, run off. When he drops into the pockets in the 10 position, he's very good defensively in that position as well, in terms of if you've got a dictating player like a Rodri or something, he's really good at annoying that profile type of player. But that's what you've got to be. I'd love to hear that he'll start the season for you, mate, and obviously hope he does really well. It generally would really please me. Not convinced though. I'm just trying to picture, if you play a back three, what we saying, possibly something like Tarkowski, Godfrey, Mina, I'd guess, maybe his best three.
Yeah.
You've got Mikolenko left wing back, I presume would keep his place over Nagri, Patterson on the right. And then what, midfield 3 or 2? I'm just trying to picture where Dele fits in this.
Yeah, well, I think he'll probably play. There'll sort of be 2 playing off Calvert-Lewin in behind.
So possibly Gordon and Dele then.
Yeah, that's so obviously with Dwight McNeil coming in, he's an option, Gray's an option. So there is competition for places. But that's what I mean. I think that's going to mean that he knows that he's not just a guaranteed starter and he can just go through the motions, because he knows he's got players that are chomping at the bit and pushing him, and I think that'll help him. I really do. I mean, that's the options behind that are poor, because at the minute we've only really got Allen and Doucouré and Tom Davis. But there is talk of obviously Garner coming in, and I'd like to think there'll be someone else, a big, strong 6 type that will get in, because we need it from set pieces, because we're just awful at set pieces. And I don't see, as much as I love Garner, I don't see how having someone of his height is going to help us, because we conceded 19 goals from set pieces last season. So we badly need some added aerial ability, and it was one of the the issues I had when we were linked with Harry Winks, and we were linked with Den Donker from Wolves and various other players that I had no interest in us signing. So I'm hoping we get somebody in for that. But Dele, I definitely think he's gonna start, and then it's gonna be down to him. But again, I spoke about the changing formation, so we are sort of fairly well off for wide players. So if he does change it
after these 2 friendlies, because obviously we are recording prior to 2 Everton friendlies, so we're going to get a lot more information over this weekend. Give us a message Sunday night so I can talk about it a bit more Monday, mate.
Yeah, definitely. But he's 5.5, isn't he? Do you know? I know everyone's got a Pedro Neto loving affair going on at the minute, but Wolves, they really don't score goals, do they? And last season, I was looking at something last night, XG from last season, and Wolves were 19th for goals scored, XG.
I'll credit our game week 39 captain, Suj David Mundy. I saw posted something on Scout. He'd looked at Neto's returns when Jimenez was injured. I think it was two goals in 35 or something very similar.
Wow. And Jimenez, we know, is out for quite a while now.
No, it's not as bad as has originally been reported, but he's going to miss the first couple of weeks.
Yeah. So
I'd still pick Neto.
I was just thinking from that point of view. That's what made me sort of have a little look around. That's how I come to find out that Dele was 5.5 million.
Nice, mate. I think if I had to punt in that area, I'd go Gordon personally, more assured of starts, but not massively keen. Chelsea opening day, and then I think the 4 after that, Villa, Forest, Brentford, Leeds look okay, but 3 of them are away from home, which has obviously been problematic for you. And I think they're important because then afterwards you walk into a tougher run, which goes kind of right up to game week 13. Then it's only 4 games before the World Cup. And there is a danger that if you start badly, you could get cut adrift. It's worth saying the other teams we expect to be down there, probably all bar Leeds, who obviously they're changing their squad a little bit, so it's a difficult call. But the other 5, I think, of the 6 you mentioned, have tough starts, including the promoted clubs. And I know there's a lot of people fearing for Southampton this year as well. They've all got tough starts as well. So you might all be cut adrift.
We'll all be cut
quite early, possibly. Where do you think you finish, Sean?
I went for 16th on my predictions, because I don't think we're going to sign enough players to finish it, much higher than that. I think we'll definitely be in fighting with the bottom 7. So I've gone for 16th because I'm convinced we just simply have to get someone else in terms of covering Richarlison. So if we don't, then sadly we will go down. There's no two ways about it. This current squad, I just can't see how it won't. But if we get a Cornet or a Dennis, then I think we'll be fine and we'll stay up. But we won't finish much higher than sort of 15th, 16th.
I think you're right. My thoughts are the same. I'm agreement. Anywhere in that bottom 7 is where you could finish. I'm probably looking at the squad. There's enough experience, I would say, in there that you'd be able to, like Tarkowski coming in adds a bit of experience, and Calvert-Lewin has scored. I think there's enough players with experience that I'd probably err towards staying up and just going down. But it's a fine line, and 2 or 3 injuries, and you're into the kind of backup, and then you're definitely. So I think 16th is probably fair, 15th, 16th, and it could be anywhere in that bottom 7's where I'd think as well.
I think obviously the next month's going to be critical, and I'm sure you are going to get something else in terms of bodies and improved quality as well. Looking at the squad at the moment, you talk about key players like Mino, and I mean, if you lose Calvert-Lewin next season like you lost him last season, that's now catastrophic. Richarlison obviously did so well to basically cover for that last year. If you've lost obviously Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin for another season, then that is so grim. So he's got to stay fit, and again, you've got to get another attacking player in. I mean, if the majority of the squad stay fit this year, I think it'd probably be all right. I think like Tarkowski is a good addition and stuff. The goalkeeper's good. If Mina can stay fit, he's a good player. You have got depth there at centre back and stuff. But I look around the league, and of the teams that are in our league already and still there, I'd make a case you're arguably the weakest at the moment. Southampton be hit and miss where they'll lose like 6-7 games in a row, but then they'll go and win 4 in a row. That's how they are. I think what happens to Everton this year will depend on A, the next month, B, the fitness, and C, possibly most important of all, might be what the 3 promoted clubs do. Because if say Forest and Fulham are good, then I think Everton will go down.
That's a nice way to try and end the pod, James.
It's unthinkable, but I am worried. I am slightly concerned that if the results are bad at the start, I'm not saying quite to the extent, but I have vibes of that Aston Villa season when they were trying to get Randy Lerner out of the club, and there was a lot of players there that it was the same things, like hanging around, can't get rid and stuff. And I'm not saying to the extent I think Everton will finish bottom on the 18, 20 points or whatever Villa finished on. But I've got this nervous vibe that it could be really bad. Right, Palace next.
Yeah, exactly that. Sean, do you want to tell the listeners where they can find you?
I really hope not for you, Sean. And we've got a lot of Everton followers, and I don't think there's a bigger club outside the top 6 than Everton in this league. If someone wants to come and argue with me about that, fine, crack on. Everton's a huge football club. It should not be in this mess.
No, Sean, absolutely.
Do you want to tell the listeners where they can find you on Twitter?
Yeah, you can, if you want to see somebody just going nuts about their football team on a regular basis, then I am at Spirit_Blues.
Sean's timeline is one of the better ones, and you may know his mood already from the 2 friendlies and stuff. But yeah, please DM me Sunday night. Mind you, if you've lost twice, I'll get the picture. You don't need to DM me, mate. Brilliant. Yeah, with Palace next is the final one with Mig Tavis, and they are very much an improving side.
On the up. Listeners, if you've been through all 19 so far, then thank you so much for staying with us, and I hope they've all been good. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast, and you'll know when episode 20 of Correspondent Week goes live, which will be in a couple of hours. Other than that, stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, Sean. Good luck, buddy. Cue music, please, man, Chad.